Welcome back, AJ Howell, Larry Weir. We're going to talk more Eastern Washington football. Larry, this last weekend was a heartbreaker.
That was a tough one, AJ. Tough one indeed. They struggled offensively for the first three quarters. Defensively played well, except for two big plays, and they make the comeback, and you think you have the go-ahead touchdown, and you don't. A veteran wide receiver gets caught in a illegal formation, and then you miss a field goal after that to try to tie the game. So it was a hard one for this team, I'm sure. But I think fans have to be encouraged by the way the offense played in the fourth quarter, and they have to be encouraged by the way the defense played the whole game. And outside of the missed field goal, encouraged with the way special teams have played so far this year. Landon Ogles had 5 punts downed inside the 20 this past week. You block a punt, third straight week with a kick block for Eastern Washington. So there's still a lot of good things happening. They just haven't translated to wins, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah, Aaron was saying that he is encouraged because the way he was speaking, I was like, "You sound encouraged," and he said, "Yep, that is, how I feel." There's a lot of good there. Even with Nate Bell's performance, I was asking if he could kind of grade that as we go into the next week, knowing that Jared Taylor won't be back at least for this next one. That he's like, "Well, we got to catch the ball." He was like, "I grew up house rules: you touch it, you catch it," and we did not help him out there, which I also think is interesting. We talked about last week how one of the goals was to not have your quarterback leading all the rushing statistics, but obviously in this case, it really paid off. He expressed that as well. And just the way that this offense kind of operated and what we saw out of Nate Bell, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought Nate played well. Coach Best is right. The receivers didn't help him out. I mean, besides the misalignment there at the end of the game, which was very damaging, they dropped probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 passes in that game, and it wasn't one guy dropping 3 or 4. It was 7 or 8 guys dropping 1. So that made it hard the first 3 quarters, especially because your playbook's a lot more limited when it's 2nd and 10, 3rd and 9, whatever it might be, because you're not getting those 5, 6, 7-yard gains on the quick passes. So that really hamstrung the team through the first 3 quarters. I thought Nate did very well. I asked Coach when we recorded our coaches show if they kind of had training wheels on the offense a little bit early on, being as how it was his first start, and he said no, that's not the case at all. They thought they were playing pretty regular football with him. It was just the fact that Eastern couldn't catch a pass that was causing a problem for him.
Your perspective from what you've seen of this team and the growth, they've had to face some different hurdles already this season, but being in front of the home crowd, all that, do you think that maybe those jitters go away a little bit more as far as drop passes, or do they increase?
Well, I hope they go away. I mean, you've got to, there's so much, but there is going to be excitement. I mean, and students are coming back on campus. I mean, for a month, these athletes have been the only people on campus here, whether it's a volleyball player, a soccer player, football player, cross country, whatever it happens to be. Those have been the only people on campus, and now other people their age are starting to show up. So I think there's going to be some excitement for that, probably some excitement for school starting, and just excitement to be on the red. I mean, all these guys love to be on the Inferno. So I think there will be a lot of excitement, but hopefully guys can manage that and get aligned properly and catch the ball when it's thrown to them.
Figuring it out. Moving ahead to this weekend, Western Illinois, a lot of excitement just with the fact that it's a home game, as you said, and with students. The guys mentioned that a couple times, like students will finally be on campus. Should be a pretty day. But the funny thing about the Leathernecks is that, they face 2 FBS opponents right off the bat, combined 10 points for their first 2 games, and it's hard to, from my perspective, because the coaches and players said differently, it's kind of hard to judge when you see that, and then you see them play another school and score 52 points. Obviously, to the trained eye of the athletes and coaches, they can watch the film and kind of gauge from that. And but I would think kind of hard to place what to expect when your sample is a little bit skewed.
I agree with you 100%. Western Illinois, in my opinion, hasn't played a team at their own fighting weight here. They played Illinois, they played Northwestern, 2 Big Ten teams, and then they played last week against Valparaiso, which is a non-scholarship FCS team. Now, we saw a non-scholarship FCS team come into the Inferno last year in Drake and beat Eastern Washington, so it's not as though Valpo is a poor football team, but they haven't played a scholarship FCS team yet. So let's see what Western Illinois looks like. They have the same problems Eastern does and Northern Iowa does, and that's the fact that they don't have the NIL and the money to be able to keep their players around. So it's a new team year over year, and it'll be interesting to see what they have.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where the momentum falls into things. Again, there's so much excitement for this weekend, and depending on the individual, can probably take this fourth quarter comeback, but heartbreaking loss, and spin it whichever way is most beneficial. But I love Aaron said at this point you have no choice but to show back up, and I'm sure that's what a lot of conversation is like. It's tough, I would imagine, when you start a season 0-3 and you're going to the grocery store and people are asking questions and wanting answers, and you're like, we're trying, like until it happens, you're working for it, right? So I'm interested to see what the momentum factor is and all of that, because as we've expressed, plenty of reasons to be encouraged about Eastern Washington football right now after what we saw Saturday.
Losing is the easiest thing in life to do, because you don't have to do very much in order to lose. You just have to, sit there and let things happen. The hardest thing to do is to win at something, because you actually have to go out and put forth effort. And these guys are putting forth the effort. They were last year. They were the year before. And that's kind of the frustrating thing, that they've been so close, but it seems like they're inventing each week some new way to lose a game that they didn't do the week before. It's not the same thing every week that's causing them problems. It's a different thing each week, it seems like. So, it's a difficult situation, and it's bad breaks. Some of it is just, tough things that happen that you're like, or a bad call or whatever it might be. So, I'm very curious to see what happens. I'm interested to see Western Illinois. I'm interested to see this team's response, because they haven't fractured. Everybody is staying together. They're all rowing the boat in the same direction on time. So hopefully that gets them across the finish line ahead this week.
Yeah, I loved Aaron mentioned before that drive in the fourth quarter that he's like, you have your normal huddle, and then sometimes you have some guys from the other side of the ball talking, some coaches, whatever. He's like, we had like 70 guys in this huddle. It was, an unsolicited shift in the mood from the players that they could win this, they could do this. He was like, it gives me chills and all of that. And I think stuff like that is so important, because you see some of it from your perspective, but a lot of us don't get to see all of that. We look at the box score, and even if we're watching the game, we don't always know. As far as I know, they could have called everybody over and said, hey, everybody listen in this time, But to know that there's those factors as well that are influencing this team and their dynamic, which we discussed for the past few weeks about just hearing things about this team having composure or maturity that maybe they didn't in previous seasons, that they felt like was serving them well. And to know that some of this, rallying seems somewhat player-led, and how that can carry them through, the next time they're in a tough, trying to tie the game, trying to take the lead situation with 2 minutes to go.
I think is part of why Coach Best is encouraged. It's part of why I'm encouraged about this team, because they continue to work hard, they stay together, and this is such a young team. I mean, there are some seniors on this team, but it is a very young team. The defensive secondary right now is almost all freshmen and sophomores at this point in time, with the exception of, Dejon Wells, who just came back this past season, or this past week, I should say. The defensive line has a lot of young talent on it. The offensive line has a lot of young talent. There's a lot of young talent at tight end and wide receiver and running back. I'm so excited to see how this team grows and develops over the last 3 quarters of the season. We're only a quarter of the way through. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. The first 3 weeks weren't quite what they wanted. They probably could be 2-1 right now. Probably should be 1-2 at the very least. I'm very interested as to how this ball game on Saturday is going to go, and then the start of Big Sky Conference play, because you kick it off with a pretty big one there playing at Montana State in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. So much potential. And I want to circle back to one thing. Obviously, a lot of the headlines about Jared Taylor being out, Nate Bell being in, he runs in 2 touchdowns, fourth quarter comeback, all these things, missed field goal, however you want to, headline the story. The defense keeping them in this one with the ability to have a comeback in a last-minute fashion as well. How impressive for these guys, again, a young group, to be able to step up to the plate and do their part.
Oh, tremendous. Northern Iowa reached the red zone, which was the eastern 20-yard line, 3 times in the game. They came out with 3 total points. They got a field goal, they got a 4th down stop, Eastern did, and they also got a turnover in that situation. So 3 red zone stops, 3 points out of the red zone, that's going to win you a lot of games, usually. Hold a team to 17 points is going to win you a lot of games, usually. So this team, they gave up a lot of yards from the goal line to the 20, but they didn't give up very many yards from the 20-yard line on in, which is the key part of the ball game, and they forced the turnovers. They had 4 turnovers in the game, but 2 got called back, one by a official's review and one by a penalty. So they're getting the ball out this year, which is something they haven't always done. They are rallying, they're tackling pretty well at this point in time, and they're very athletic, and they're a lot of fun to watch. This is the best defensive team I think Eastern's had in several years.
A lot of excitement, a lot of potential there. You mentioned it as they, begin conference play. It could be huge to have this win at home before they hit the road again. What do you need to see on both sides on the ball, whether it's things the same as last week or things that need to be changed from last week in your mind for them to get a win?
I'd like to see the defense maybe give up a few less yards from the goal line to their 20 and maybe get off the field so they're not on the field 35, 36 minutes out of this ball game on Saturday. I'd like to see the defense, if they're out there 32, 31, 33 minutes, if they're having the same success where they're stopping the team in the red zone, et cetera, that's fine, but just maybe get off the field a little bit more often earlier than what they did last week, and I'd like to see the offense pick up where they left off. And that 4th quarter, they were dynamic on offense. I'd like to see more of that this week with how Nate plays and how the receivers play around him and how the line protects, because that was probably their best game of protection last week out of their first 3 up front. So I'd like to see a little more of that, and let's see what we can do in special teams. Maybe you can break a return, maybe block another kick. I don't know what other kicks you can block. You've blocked an extra point, a field goal, and a punt so far. So, maybe you get your second in one of those or a second in more than one of those. But it'll be very interesting to watch. I'm going to be, it's supposed to be a nice day, so hopefully all the fans will come out, all the Eagle fans. It's the same time as the Apple Cup, as I understand it, so that's a difficult sell for some people, but should be a lot of fun on the Inferno on Saturday, AJ.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.